Hello, welcome back again. Another live stream. We are going into a realm we have not been before. Somewhere, I wouldn't say, it's not Star Wars. It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons Star Wars. We're going Spelljammer. I know Spelljammer is coming, so I thought it would be nice to talk a little bit about some of the monsters and creatures that you will be coming across. And I've warned people before that things are pretty batty when it comes to Spelljammer. So if you thought that you were going to get something that was sort of simple and not strange, you are wrong, because that's not Spelljammer, and the Rogue Moon is certainly one of those. So grab some food, some drink, make sure you are comfortable, get ready. We are going to go on a ride, and it is one of those sort of rides where it definitely goes wacky. Hi Scott, how's it going? And how's it going, Nicola? Welcome. So I am pretty much ready to go. I do apologise for being a little bit late, but I'm ready to present something. All right, sound is working fine. Thank God for that. And I've just been told that apparently I am live. Gosh, notifications are very fast nowadays, aren't they? It's like YouTube's working better than it's ever worked before. Okay. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. I would like to talk about Star Wars, but if I did talk about Star Wars, probably nobody would hang around and watch any of it. So I'm talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm kind of trying to push a little bit of Star Wars in there at the same time. Hence the meme that we have here, but also hence the monster I have selected to talk about, because this monster is a Spelljammer monster. Believe it or not, it's the Rogue Moon. So I am not normally known to do a lot of monster lore stuff, but today is one of those days where I'm definitely going to be calling it what it is. It is a flying moon thing. The Rogue Moon for Spelljammer Dungeons and Dragons monster lore. We can call it that. I am venturing into new ground. For those of you who are wondering, was it always going to be AJ Pickett, Mr. Rex, Dungeon Dad, Dungeon Cast? Probably they'll be doing it a lot better than I am, more than likely. But I'm talking about something none of them have talked about before. This is not a Death Star. This is not the space station or a large space station. It's not a small moon. No, that's a rogue moon we're talking about. So when you're dealing with a monster like this, you can be sure that the Death Star and moon jokes, and I'm not just talking about the moon that glows in the sky, I'm talking about the drop your pants and show your bare bottom kind of moon. Those kind of jokes are going to brighten your game table discussions throughout the evening as soon as you present this monster in your game, more than likely. The Rogue Moon is a wandering monster the size of a whale that resembles a glowing ball. Well, at least for a little bit. The Rogue Moon dwells in the more remote regions of world space, or you can call it the astral sea. It doesn't really matter. World space, astral sea, there may be some differentiation. I think we're going to be using them interchanged. Doesn't matter. From a distance, it may resemble or be mistaken for a moon, but it's not really a moon. All rogue moons have a roughly spherical body covered with scales that are orange to bright yellow. These scales form a thick, flexible armor that protects the rogue moon from attacks and assaults. Each rogue moon has two stalks and a large mouth on one side, and then they also have small openings regularly spaced around the rest of the body, and they serve a purpose I will explain. The two stalks are flexible and they move constantly on the rogue moon. They act as sensors so that they know what's out there, because a rogue moon doesn't have eyes, but it does have these two stalks. Dozens of spikes lie flat on the scales of the moon, and they point away from the stalks and the mouth area of a rogue moon for a very good reason, which as I said, I will continue to explain. A rogue moon's teeth are well adapted They're designed for chewing a variety of different foods, which means your player characters. Now, combat. A combat with this is, well, kind of one-sided, I would say, but we'll go into it. Over the centuries, the Rogue Moon developed the uncanny ability to fool those who travel through wild space or the astral sea. Unwary travellers and the occasional monster tend to move towards unknown sources of light in the astral sea or wild space, which, unfortunately, a Rogue Moon can produce. When the prey comes within, say, several hundred yards, the Rogue Moon stops glowing and then starts slowly drifting forward in the darkness towards its prey. If the Rogue Moon gets within 30 feet of its prey, it will suddenly increase its size tenfold and erect its spikes. They all sort of stick out. So as it enlarges, the Rogue Moon will then suck smaller prey towards it. It's like it's inhaling. Unless those smaller prey react quickly and grab successfully onto their ship or whatever else is hanging around. Victims are automatically impaled or impale themselves on this Rogue Moon as they fall towards the spikes of the moon. A Rogue Moon spikes are poisonous and will cause paralysis for less than a minute, but that's all that's needed to claim its dinner. Even a ship can be affected by the Rogue Moon's inhalation. Now, generally, a very large object such as a ship will hit the Rogue Moon shortly after the small objects, which are usually passengers or smaller space-faring or space-traveling creatures. A Rogue Moon can avoid a ship if it wants to by moving out of the way. Now, impact with a Rogue Moon will cause damage to a ship's hull for sure, all the passengers on the ship, and to the Rogue Moon itself. So it's not really a great thing to wind up ramming into this thing, because everybody suffers in some way. If attacked, the Rogue Moon uses its teeth to fight back. Now, after combat, the Rogue Moon then returns to its normal size and shakes off any paralyzed victims or prey and then devours them. They're gone. Now, the habitat of the Rogue Moon or society is strange. As you would expect, so far it's a pretty strange monster as it is. The Rogue Moon is by nature a nomadic, roaming monster, but it also moves completely erratically. There doesn't seem to be a pattern. Generally, a Rogue Moon will drift in deep space, covering several hundred miles in a month. All Rogue Moons are solitary creatures, and they do not mate, but they do have a peculiar way of reproducing, which I will explain. Every 5 years, a Rogue Moon exudes moon spawn. Moon spawn, basically moon eggs, okay? If you didn't figure it out, it's Rogue Moon eggs, it's moon spawn. It is a thin, glowing cloud consisting of gas and microscopic eggs. The moon spawn does not dissipate in wild space, which you would think it would, as it's got a cohesive property that enables it to stay together. The moon spawn then drifts away from the Rogue Moon who has produced it, and the smell of the moon spawn is going to attract another Rogue Moon, and it can do that from thousands of miles away. Now, when a new Rogue Moon reaches the moon spawn, it is fertilized by that moon spawn. A year later, the mother casts away several smaller Rogue Moons that immediately drift away into the astral sea or wild space. If anything or anyone else comes in contact with the moon spawn is wasted. It is no longer able to be fertilized, so don't touch. Rogue Moons can move by compressing or pushing air out of the openings in their scales, because there are openings in the scales or around the scales, and that's how it moves. It uses air to change direction and to gain acceleration. A rogue moon can retain air found in the occasional pockets of air in space. Now, you've got to understand that Dungeons & Dragons Wild Space and the Astral Sea, there is actually air. And there will be clumps or patches or pockets of air that it can suck up. It can also draw air from larger objects, because something like a spaceship or a Spelljammer ship, or even an asteroid or a meteorite or something like that, or a larger creature, it will usually have a pocket of air around it in some way. An easy way of dealing with the vacuum of space. This is how rogue moons move in combat, pushing air out of those holes, or leaving the surface of a larger object, such as, say, a planet, or maybe an asteroid or meteorite that's really large. That's for the larger rogue moons, because you can have different sizes. If a small rogue moon accidentally lands on a large ship or Spelljammer ship, it would use the air on that ship to propel itself away. That's generally how it would work, because a small rogue moon is really no match for a large ship, so it's not going to be mucking around with that. The rogue moon can walk, if it wanted to, by slowly moving the spikes in a manner like a sea urchin. So the spikes are erected, and those spikes can actually be manipulated, and they can use it to actually move and walk along a surface. In a total vacuum, probably the most dangerous place for a rogue moon to be, in fact anybody really, in total vacuums, a rogue moon is stranded, it is helpless against attack, and it would eventually perish. This is because total vacuum means no air, and it needs air to be able to move and propel itself around. Okay, but in the astral sea, generally there does seem to be pockets of air. Now, rogue moons don't actually need the air to breathe, they need the air to move. Okay, the ecology of this thing, but there's not much here. Rogue moons can live without food for months, so they don't have to feed all the time. If starving, the rogue moon goes into a state of lethargy, so it sort of shuts down. This can last up to 10 years, or until they sort of sense something or someone approaching. So their senses aren't turned off, but they aren't sort of running at full capacity. Beyond 10 years, a rogue moon will wither and die if it can't feed. Poor rogue moon. Now, the liver of the rogue moon, should you ever be able to kill one of these things and dissect it, makes an excellent component for a reverse gravity potion. Should you want a reverse gravity potion, and you must get it, and the only way you can get it is by disposing of a rogue moon. I feel like there's probably easier ways. The glands producing the rogue moon's venom or poison can be used as an ingredient in various types of sporaphic drugs. It's drugs, basically drugs. I mean, look, I'm not going to... Look, you want to put drugs in your game? It's up to you. Okay, not a problem. Next, the rogue moon's venom glands are usually located at the base of the spines, under the scales. Now, treasure belonging to various victims that it is eaten can be found inside a rogue moon, provided that it is made of something that, or encased in something that is acid resistant. If it's not an acid resistant material, it's going to get dissolved. So probably the only things that will survive that sort of kind of aggressive chemical reaction is going to be possibly gold. I mean, it depends on how many different things are going to survive in there. You might decide that magic items or magic weapons can survive in there and they're acid resistant. It's up to you. But if it's not acid resistant, it's getting disposed of. Now, how do you defeat a rogue moon? Well, you don't fight a rogue moon. You flee it if possible as far as you possibly can go. That is the smartest strategy. Don't bother fighting one. You try to avoid them. They are bad news. I suppose if you know where it is, then shooting it from a distance might be a possibility, but the problem is you're dealing with the darkness of wild space in the astral sea. You won't be able to see it because it doesn't have to glow, and therefore you risk the chance of getting too close to it. So it's probably smarter just to run away. How can you incorporate the rogue moon into an adventure? Now, I'm going to suggest 3 ideas outside of the very most obvious idea, which is they are traveling in wild space or the astral sea, and they see a glowing light, and they travel towards the glowing light, and then, of course, it blinks out, and then they wind up encountering a rogue moon that way. If you've got your player characters on a Spelljammer ship or something like that, or some sort of ship. These other ones aren't quite so obvious, but there's only so much you can do with a rogue moon. I'm going to say you can include the rogue moon as a mysterious astral body that one day sort of orbits a world to feed on any kind of Spelljammer ships that are visiting. It would probably pick a world or planet that is traveled to quite often. Otherwise, it would run out of food. A rogue moon can hide in an asteroid field, something that's got full of rocks, because in the astral sea, in wild space, in Dungeons and Dragons, things do actually live in an asteroid field, and therefore there would be a food source for the rogue moon there, more than likely, because things live on those rocks. Also, if you have sort of like a Spelljammer shipyard, you could have a rogue moon drift into a busy location in that shipyard by accident, and then begin feeding, bumping into ships, sucking off passengers or work crews, and then poisoning them and then eating them. Sounds like a fun time. Now, as far as I can tell, the history of the rogue moon in terms of publication is kind of sketchy. As far as I can tell, the only time it's ever appeared is in the Monstrous Compendium for Spelljammer, way back in Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition. I didn't find any other reference to it as far as I could tell, and that's really all I have on the rogue moon. And I would very much like to know, did you like this monster? Would you use it in your game? Or was it just a pleasant distraction from your day? Let me know in the comments section. I would certainly like to know if you've ever used it before, or if you are planning to use it, or if there's some ideas it has brought forward to you that you would incorporate into your Dungeons and Dragons Spelljammer campaign, because that's why we're talking about this in the first place, is because you're probably going to be running a Spelljammer campaign at some point. So thank you to everybody who watched my video. I do appreciate it. Make sure to leave that comment, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. I'm not gone, but while we're here, I suppose we should explain the difference between Pollen, which I am suffering from right now, and the Death Star. There's almost no difference between the two, as you can see. They are both a plague on the universe and should be destroyed whenever possible. Pollen, Death Star, same sort of risk, frankly, as far as I can tell. Okay, it's got to be Q&A time. I know I need to do that, so we will do some Q&A, some questions and answers for those of you who are still here and actually interested in me talking about. I mean, we don't have to talk about rogue moons or Death Stars, or we're probably talking about Dungeons and Dragons or roleplay games would be a smart idea. That's kind of the point of these live streams in the first place, is to talk about those sort of topics. I am happy to discuss any of those different things if you would like, because I have a bit of time. Oh, I should point out, and yes, I have been very quick today in terms of my presentation. Maybe that's because of, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Are my eyes any better without the, my God, my eyes are better without the glasses. This is not good. Maybe it's time to get them readjusted. I do have days like that, though. I always have had days like that. Let me go through the quiz, or should I say the poll. 8 people have responded. Oh, come on, people. Come on. Click a button. It's not that hard. I know nothing about either the Death Star or the Rogue Moon. Really? There are 75% of you who've never heard of the Death Star or the Rogue Moon. I don't believe it. DM'd one of these. Nobody's ever DM'd using the Death Star or the Rogue Moon. My gosh. Killed a Rogue Moon. Nobody's killed a Rogue Moon. And blown up the Death Star. 25% have blown up the Death Star. Awesome. Remember, we want to blow up all that pollen as well. Okay, let me go through the chat here fairly quickly. My suggestion to you is, by all means, hashtag question. I will answer questions about anything. You know me. I'm a chatterbox. Did I get it done? I put it in there. It's in there. All right, so people will see it, hopefully. Yes, there is a Dungeon Master Roundtable today, and I will tell you who is in it and where it is shortly, but let's go through the chat. So we have a variety of different... does it have a character levels? No, Rogue Moons don't have character levels. Does it have a monster level? 14 levels of Moonic assassination. Possibly. I mean, look... So you've got to understand, this is Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition, or even the first version of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. There was no monster level for them, right? You just stuck it in, and then whatever happens will happen. I wonder why they called the Death Star the Death Star. It was, it's clearly a Death Moon. Yes, yes. And not Keith either. Yeah, sure. I don't know who Keith Moon is. So, because I have no idea who Keith Moon is, and frankly no desire to talk about Keith Moon, we're going to move on, okay? Yes, Nicola, I forgot Gabriel. That's right. It's been a while. My brain, look, too much going on. I can assure you, life is very complicated for me nowadays. I wonder if a Rogue Moon is related to a Beholder. Actually, there seem to be a lot of monsters in Spelljammer that are round. Like, and there's a lot of different monsters that are just round, and then they have eyes or mouths or things coming off them. There's a lot of round stuff. Apparently, that's the best shape to use when traveling in Spelljammer's Astral Sea or Wild Space. There's a lot of great content to port over from the Star Wars to Spelljammer, yes. So I've used the Rancor more than a few times in my Dungeons & Dragons games, and I can assure you that my players were terrified and also highly amused as they watched one of their characters getting eaten. Because that's what you would do, is you stick it in the mouth and chew it up. And then, of course, there's all that sort of hullabaloo. How do we get them out before they are, digested? Something like that. But yes, swallowing characters with Rancors, super, super fun. And I'm sure it will be the same thing with your Rogue Moon. What do you got here, Gabriel? And this is, Bell Cannon? I think it's Bell Camon. Sorry about that. I missed that. What do you got here, Gabriel? I think that would be cooler if they were, what's this? Fisherman angular fish that lives in space. There are things like that. So it's not like we don't want to reproduce what we've already got. The Spelljammer's got stuff like that already. With some, what's this? Puffier fish characteristics thrown in. I think what has happened is that whoever created the Rogue Moon has taken the sea urchin and the way that the sea urchin hunts, because the sea urchin does actually hunt, and that's how it sort of operates. I might not be completely right. Somebody here who does study biology will probably know more about the sea urchin or the sea egg, because my understanding is they do have an interest in eating other things, not just vegetables. I think they will eat other things if they can, and I think this is kind of how it works. It's more like a sea urchin, frankly. Righto. Erect the spine sounds dirty. Look, man. Look, YouTube blocks so many different words. I'm allowed to use the word erect. Okay, it's not, as far as I know, that word has not been banned or flagged by YouTube. There are other words that have been, but I'm sure that one's still fine. How's it going, Pale Rider? Well, it's not a Paladin moon. No, it's not a Paladin moon. No. What do you got here, Nicole? Gabrielle, what do you got? Animals aren't poisonous, they're venomous. So rogue moons erect poisonous. Poisonous. Look, poisonous, venomous. Look, okay, I needed to use a different word. Let's not go there. I did use the word poisonous. Okay, I did use the word poison in there somewhere. Hi, Mike Hall. How's it going? More worried about the barbarian moon. I don't think... Is there a barbarian moon? Do we need to worry about that? I would... sneak attack. You want to give the rogue moon sneak attack, Scott? Seriously? Is it not dangerous enough as it is, the way that it operates? Frankly, I think it's got enough going for it. Some tree frogs are poisonous. Just saying. Look, whatever. There's an argument about what poison... So we're going to argue about poisonous frogs or venomous frogs now. Okay, guys. All right, I'm staying out of that. Be nice. Oh, I can't believe it. There's three of you got into that. Hi, Jasper. How's it going? I don't think it's a great random encounter, Scott. I think it is a main event. It is something... Look, people think that random encounters are random, but the random encounters aren't really that random. You know, you might roll on a table, and that's the only random aspect of it. You actually have planned to use it, because that's why you're using the table in the first place. As my animal companion, you want to have a rogue moon as an animal companion. Oh, you guys are having a good time. I can see that now. Down with pollen. Yeah, pollen sucks. Okay. So if you got yourself an X-Wing, go and blow up the pollen everywhere, because I hate it. I really do. Pollen is evil. Absolutely. I agree, Scott, Pale Rider. Pollen is evil. Yeah. Well, look, I'm sure Death Stars do make people sneeze from time to time. Okay. What's this? Oh, you got some ideas here. A PC's working for a company that makes anti-gravity potions from rogue moons, I guess. Must go to a planet to recharge its oxygen tanks. The PCs must capture a young one and erect its anti-gravity, extract its anti-gravity protein. Okay, all right. Question. Okay, all right. Okay, you guys are taking the piss out of me now. I can see this. Look, I did this. Okay, I know. Pale Rider. Question. Rogue Moon as a pet. No, Rogue Moon is not a pet. No, not a pet. It's going to eat the whole party. It's not a pet. I mean, it's not like the small baby Rogue Moons are that small. Do you know what I mean? Have you ever seen a small baby whale? They're not that small. They're bigger than you are. Oh, the drummer from Who? Okay, all right, Keith Moon. Okay, now I've got a point of reference, but I'm not making a video on Keith Moon. All right, next. You want to? Yeah. Oh, look, I would vomit too. Who would want to have to deal with a pet and it's a rogue moon? Go and check out Wally DM. He did a Dungeon Master panel with us, and he asked us about pets, by the way. Apparently, YouTube doesn't hate him for making that video, so it actually had some people watch it. Okay, so what do we got here? What do you got here, Mike? Question. Would a rogue moon corpse work as a location for a dungeon crawl? Absolutely. Especially if the players knew it had eaten a load of gold and can't digest it. Mike, I think that's a good idea. I think, yes, use the dead corpse of a rogue moon as a dungeon location. I mean, I would imagine that when we say about the size of a whale, you got to remember that There are whales of different sizes. And I'm sure that a rogue moon, if it lives long enough, because there's no lifespan listed. Rogue moons don't seem to have a lifespan. They just keep drifting around and eating, drifting around and eating. So potentially there could be some Moby Dick sized rogue moons if you really wanted to. Some pretty big ones. Hello. Hello. There's a lot of laughing going on. Hello, Todd. I've got to hold it together. Okay, stay with it, Fred. Okay. Todd. Hi, Todd. I don't know too much about Spelljammer. That's all right. I'm having to learn a lot myself, but I have run a campaign in a Spelljammer campaign for 4E. But from what I've seen so far, it appears absolutely everything will try to kill you. Yes. But also everything that is completely bizarre and just doesn't make sense at times is probably going to show up. Like you could find a giant floating donut that in the Astral Sea or Wild Space in a Spelljammer campaign, which has been turned into like a mobile space station or a city market for all you know. That's how bat crazy. That's why there are space clowns in the Spelljammer campaign. It's really no holds barred. But then there's other things that are just horrific, such as the Eldritch Lich and the Fracture, the Focoid, which seems just bizarre, but yeah. And then there's other things that are even more terrifying. They seem comical, but they just aren't. They will end you in the most horrible way. That's right. I'm so happy to see somebody. Absolutely. Yeah. No. You can be sarcastic. Look, I don't expect people to take this live stream too serious. Like, I do get it. I just made a live stream on a monster. I don't generally do monster lore, and I've been doing more of it because, frankly, do you know, it's a lot more fun. Frankly, it's been so much more fun. The good thing is I get to go through and rip out all of the game mechanics and just turn it into lore. And frankly, going to probably keep doing that. Although, I should probably tell you what I'm doing next week and the week after. You may be surprised. I've never argued, Fred. Just poking fun. No. You don't have to worry about arguing. Look, I get it. I do get it. Question. So does Gabriel have a sensible question, or are we going somewhere else? How do you usually run mystery games? Okay, Gabriel, I've only run a couple of mystery campaigns or adventures in my Dungeons and Dragons time as a dungeon master, and there's a rule of 3 that usually gets stated is like whatever information the players have to find to get them to the next point or progress the mystery, or for them to discover what's going on as they collect that information, you need to have 3 points of access. So there needs to be 3 things in your adventure that they can potentially find that will give them the right information to get them further on. Because they might miss the first one, they might miss the second one, they might miss the third one. And the problem is with clues is some players cannot think beyond their character sheet. And so a mystery only works for players who love mysteries. If you have a whole lot of players at your table and they're relatively bright, because you will need to be relatively bright, trying to figure out a mystery is actually quite difficult. You also need to have people who are actually interested in mysteries. There are a lot of players who are actually extremely bright, but they don't give a toss about a murder mystery or a mystery of any kind, and they just don't want to be involved in that. So always drop as many hints and tips along the way. Don't just have one, you have to have multiples of it. And if there are too many strings to connect, so if they have to collect 3 or one of 3 clues to get them to point A, and then after point A to get to point B, there's another 3 clues, there's a good chance the whole thing will just come down on you, and it just won't work. Yeah. So that's usually what I do. It is still very hit and miss. It is one of the more difficult things to do. It's like trying to run horror in Dungeons and Dragons. Running a horror campaign is actually extremely difficult. Yep. Gabriel, if I have answered your question, you will let me know. If I have. If I haven't, then okay. This is all going to work so much better when I upgrade the camera and the computer. I can tell you that now. Oh, that's something I suppose I should say, is that's coming in the future. I don't know exactly when. I'm waiting for total chaos and disaster to befall my life. And when that happens, I will go and upgrade my gear. So when my life is on the edge of tittering into the black void, I will go and change everything out. Hugely expensive. You have no idea how expensive. So that's what's going on here. So yes, that's coming in the future. Next, moving on, Pale Rider. A god thing with a rogue moon, morning star as a weapon. You have got to be kidding. No, you're not. I can see it. It makes kind of sense. You hit it, they get spiked to it, and then it eats them after it's poisoned them. Yeah, okay. You're welcome for look, if I I know, look, I've put information down in the description. There's not a lot of information on this thing. It's really hard to find stuff. It's actually quite difficult to actually access stuff on this, and actually it seems to be the case with most of the Spelljammer stuff. There are some, the Argos and the Astral Dreadnought. There's plenty of information. You can find that pretty easily, right? It's everything else. Hat as your icon image. Well, when my mum and my family said, Fred, you know that hat you used to always wear as a dungeon master in your games? You should wear that in your videos. So it's been many years. I don't know how long, maybe 5 years, maybe 5.5 years. I've been doing this for about 6 years. It's been a long time, okay? I have more than one hat. This is not the only one. This just hides all of the embarrassing stuff underneath the hat. Does that make sense? There is a video on my channel about why I wear hats, because so many people ask me what's going on. Gabriel, question. How do you take inspiration from other cultures than yours for your world building? I use a lot of their architecture. So Aztec architecture, their temples and their pyramids, Egypt, a lot of that stuff, their tombs. I use their tomb layouts and locations. I use the pyramid layout. So if I wanted a pyramid, I would actually use the actual layout that is utilized by the Egyptians many years ago, and so they will get included in that way. Look, I pull from everything. I actually probably pull more from Greek mythology because Dungeons and Dragons does, right? As I like Greek mythology, and so I'm probably pulling more from that than anywhere else when I'm doing anything. And actually right now I'm preparing a Theros campaign, and I don't know if I'll get to run it, but we'll see. But that's really just a total carbon copy rip-off of Greek culture and mythology, just with some name changes and a few alterations so that Wizards of the Coast can stamp their IP on it and say, we came up with this idea and were inspired by Greek mythology and culture, when really they just ripped it off and decided to call it their own. Let's call it what it is. That's what it is. Okay. And in the grand history of Dungeons and Dragons, going right back to Gary Gygax, where everything that was made by somebody else had to be copied and incorporated into Dungeons and Dragons, and they borrowed, pinched, inspired, mostly stolen, everything under the sun. Right. There isn't anything that was sacred. No such thing. Money talks. So I guess that's kind of what I do. In terms of other aspects of my campaigns, I incorporate what I think is going to work. And, I think actually, if anything, my background is my ancestors are from England and Wales and Ireland and apparently Spain. I'm not sure about that one, but, well, I don't know. I guess apparently Spain. I don't actually use a lot of my own culture. Or my own. I don't really have any real strong ties to my ancestors' cultures, other than that's where my ancestors came from. So I kind of consider myself more of a mongrel. New Zealand is sort of the culture here is really bizarre, and it's changed over the years. And a lot of the changes I don't really like. So I don't know what to say my culture is now. It feels so messy and muddied up. Anyway. What do you got here, Mike? What videos do you have coming up? Yes, we should talk about that. Let's talk about what is coming up. No problems, Gabriel. I'm glad I don't know if I answered your question the way you wanted, but I did. Coming up. Here we go. What is coming up? Next week, everyone's guide to mounts. I'm just gonna say, look, there'll be some stuff there for dungeon masters and stuff for players, but it is, I would say, tailored more towards players to explain what sort of mounts would sort of make sense. And I'm not talking about fantasy mounts. I'm really kind of talking about animal mounts, land mounts, not flying mounts. Flying mounts is another topic, and exotic fantasy creatures is another topic again. So I'm going to talk about that next week. And there's going to be some stuff there for dungeon masters, a lot of stuff that I have had to sort of find, and that you can reference and go and find and utilize in whatever way. And then there's a lot of stuff and advice around players and their selection of mounts, or trying to get mounts, and what they are used for primarily. So I've wanted to do mounts for a really long time, so we're going to talk about it next week. I am close to, I wouldn't say finished, but I'm pretty close to where I needed to be. It's actually much more complicated than I thought. I had to do a lot of research on animal physiology. Would you believe it? Why are you doing why are you doing research on animal physiology? Yes, Jasper, I'm going to talk about the rhino. Do you know, I had a look, and as far as I can tell, I've only ever seen one person ride a rhino, and the rhino did something very, very strange. I don't think it's a good idea. Anyway, it's a fantasy adventure, so I'm going to try to bring a little bit of realism to your fantasy mounts, because why not? And then you can ignore it if you like, which is fine too. What do you got here, Scott? Do you include the spells also in what's this? Regard to mount or just the animals? Look, I'm not really going to talk too much about a specific spell. So if you're talking about Fine Steed or anything like that, dinosaurs. The problem with writing a dinosaur, I feel like, so here, Spirit Wolf, 1966. Dinosaurs is a topic that is so specific and so important to a Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy adventure that dinosaurs don't go into the video, the discussion I'm going to have next week. They don't go into that live stream, because dinosaur writing is its own topic. It's its own thing. You have to do a full-blown discussion only on writing dinosaurs. That's not happening right now, but it probably will, because people keep talking about dinosaurs. So dinosaur mounts is going to be coming later. We're probably going to wind up talking about flying mounts and fantastic exotic mounts before we ever talk about dinosaurs. But it will eventually come. Hello, Luna Fox. How's it going? Speaking of animal physiology, why do you care? Why do cars not have what? Why do cars not have dark vision? Did you write cars? Oh, cats. Good point. Good point, Luna. Cats should have dark vision. I'll tell you why. Because Wizards of the Coast is... I mean, those monsters don't make any sense. Look, my name's in the monster manual. I play tested a lot of that stuff. Not just the beta, but the alpha play test. Frankly, a lot of their stuff doesn't make any sense. If you've got a cat, give it dark vision. Cool, blimey. Just ignore whatever they did. They didn't know what they were doing. Somebody was, look, one of them must have been drinking heavily that night when they were putting it together, and they never looked back at that stat block. It's like, it's a cat. Don't worry about it. Dragon mounts. I've done dragon mounts. What happened to all the dragon riders? I believe it's called What Happened to All the Dragon Riders. I did dragon mounts. I've talked about that, Mike. There's a video out there. I've seen a few people try to reproduce that particular topic themselves, but I did it many years ago, so it's been done. Doing it again, I don't really want to go over old material unless I absolutely have to. And frankly, I feel like there's still places to go. So that's what's happening next week. Before we get sidetracked on dinosaurs and riding and whether animals should have dark vision, or certain animals should have dark vision, I'm going to explain to you what's happening in 2 weeks. Since there's only 11 of you left here, which is a shame because I would have hoped to have got to more people, for a long time, I've noticed that the community that are playing Dungeons and Dragons is very casual in nature. And a lot of people who were playing Dungeons and Dragons, particularly dungeon masters, who have no other choice, they can't play in person, it's too risky, and so they would have to play online. And they do not want to play online for a variety of different reasons. And I totally understand. I do get it. I do get it. So I have promised for some time that I would show you, but in 2 weeks I will show you. I will show you how I run an online game. Okay? It's not rocket science. I am not some magical wizard. It is super simple. I don't just use theatre of the mind, and I don't use a virtual tabletop. Okay? I try to make the experience as much like it is when we used to sit at the table. Now, here in New Zealand, things are getting out of hand. And so playing in person is just not going to be a wise idea. Okay, my mum is 70. I've got other people who are in the high-risk zone with other problems, so they can't do this. And so I'm going to show you. I'm not going to explain to you. I will explain, but I'm going to show you what I do when I run an online game as a dungeon master. And any of you can handle this. Trust me, you'll be fine. For those of you who remember me doing world building for RPGs, it's kind of in that vein. But trust me, it's probably a tiny bit more complicated. Or a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to show you how to get back into playing the game if you stopped playing for whatever reason. It's time to get back. I'm tired of hearing about people who stopped playing the game and they're struggling with dealing with virtual tabletops because I knew I could not run a virtual tabletop with my group. One, it takes too long to set it up. Even if I buy all the elements, it takes too long to run a combat. So I'm going to show you how to run an online game. That's what's happening in 2 weeks. Now, we have some questions here, so I will get to them. Sorry if my voice is... It's going into winter and I'm really struggling. I did pretty well, I think, generally. I think there was one time where I kind of lost my voice a little bit, but we're getting there. A Dragonelle. Jasper, I don't know that that it was new. I think that's actually been around a while. I have been reluctant to talk about that particular monster because I'm pretty sure AJ has already talked about that. I think it's called the Dragonette, not the Dragonelle. Dragonette. I think that's what you're talking about. I think you've written Dragonelle. I think it's the Dragonette you're talking about. Aren't Dragon Riders a new Ranger subclass? Why do you need to have a subclass to be to ride a dragon? Frankly, I just find that just ridiculous. You know why? It's so that silly people will go and buy the damn thing. That's why. It's like, good Lord. You can have dragon riders and you don't need to have some sort of special thing. You just need to set, I mean, you're going to be dealing with this Dragon Lance. Everybody's going to be riding a dragon. I mean, good Lord. Like, you might be in the back seat, or you might be in the front seat. It depends. Anyway, question. Gabriel, what do you got here? What is your favorite official setting? And how do you and your players give the daily and the region, their character flow some depth? Okay, so here's the problem. I like Dark Sun, but I've not found players who ever liked playing in Dark Sun. And so to give you advice on Dark Sun and how to give it depth, there's a lot of survival elements to it as a dungeon master. It is not necessarily something that players want. And it's such a different environment to your vanilla fantasy that I have found that it's not been hugely popular. And it's much more deadly. Everything's trying to kill you. Not just monsters, but the entire environment is trying to cause you to die. In a Dark Sun campaign, it really is on the edge. So I don't think I can help you with that question. I do apologize that I haven't been able to answer that question. It's just that just because I like something, I don't expect other people to like Dark Sun. I don't expect players to like it. I know there's a lot of dungeon masters who like it. That's the problem. I think most of them tend to be dungeon masters and the players can't stand it. And that's fine. That is how it is. Okay, Mike. I like playing online. Less awkward than I'm wearing pajamas. Well, I mean, did I wear my pajamas when I was DMing? Yeah, Actually, I'm pretty sure somebody showed up in their pajamas one day. So I don't think it was that awkward. It was fine. It was all right. They were clothed. Next, Belcommon. Oh gosh, Jasper. The new Druid subclass can get you pretty much there with a dino mount. Yeah. Okay. Why do we need to have a subclass to have dinosaur riding? Really? So you need to have that to be able to. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Anyway, fistbands. I mean, Dragonelle is in the in fistbands. I mean. Okay, I get it. Lena, got it. Yep. UA playtest, by the way. Yeah. Look, I saw the new playtest. I looked at it, and I don't really care, frankly. I know I should if I cared more, because that's the sort of thing that people care about. But again, it's like, it's beginning to annoy me. I've been talking to people online about this, and I am very tempted to just rewrite the Dungeons & Dragons 5e rules. I am so sick of this. This two-engine model, which we have the standard game, and then we have the variant rules that you can attach, and that's it. I want 3 engines. Actually, I'm starting to think we need to have 4 engines. But the 4th engine is probably not going to be hugely useful to everybody. It's probably only going to be useful to kids. But I think there needs to be 3 engines, and so I'm on the verge, with all the things that have gone down, of deciding that I will write the 3rd engine. Anyway, the Drake Warden Ranger is in Fizzbands. Yeah, that's the Dragon Rider subclass. Blah. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I know, but I still don't understand why we need to even worry about that. I wouldn't care too much about that. Luna, question: think Wizards of the Coast are working toward Psionics? I don't think they have a clue what to do with Psionics. I think that they have missed the point of Psionics completely, and that they will either take the lazy route or they will just annoy a whole lot of people. Now, the people who are completely new won't know what to think of Psionics, but anybody who's played the game in the past will look at whatever they put together, I suspect, and just go, why did you even bother? That's speculation. I don't hold out too much hope for that. They have been highly unsuccessful, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Okay, now that I've talked about what I'm doing next week, I'm going to tell you where you need to go for the live. In about an hour, I'm going to be going live with a lot of other people, and we are going to be in a Dungeon Master roundtable talking about a lot of different topics. There is a lot of people involved. We have a big table. We are, where is it? I believe it's the 19th for everybody in North America. And so if I can just find HowtoDandD Twitch TV. I know people don't like going to Twitch TV, but sometimes you kind of have to find stuff. Not everybody has a setup for YouTube. The guy who runs this is really, really good. He's so good. He's been awesome. He's a tiny channel though, and so I know that sort of will put a few people off. I'm going to put the link in here for you, so you know where to go in about an hour. Okay, and I will put it up on the community tab as well for my channel, so you can find them. So today we have on the Dungeon Master Roundtable number 54 in North America. We're up to number 54 of these table discussions. We are going to have HowtoDandD, that's me. We're going to have D&D, which is Denny. Denny is native Canadian, by the way, for those of you who are wondering. We have William SRD. I really enjoy his stuff. He's very funny and he's very smart, and I have had a great time, and he can tolerate my jokes, which is, well, mostly. And then Master the Game RPG, Juice. Juice will be there. He's been around a long time. He's done a lot of stuff, and he's great to discuss things with. He also often presents a different perspective than the rest of us. We also have the Bear Bard Tales. Alex Bear Bard Tales will be there. I don't know if you necessarily know his channel. It's more of an entertainment channel than anything else. But it is revolving around Dungeons and Dragons. And then we have another individual who I am going to say a little bit of a surprise. I have said before on the Dungeon Master Roundtable that don't expect there to just be Dungeon Masters that show up on this panel, because that won't always be the case. And it won't necessarily be somebody who just owns or is a content creator for YouTube only, and they run the channel themselves. There may be some individuals who are part of a channel's content that don't run it that appear there. And you may find some people who show up who are related to some of the members as well. That might happen as well. So there are going to be 6 members. We've got a whole bunch of different questions, a lot of media, IP, intellectual property discussion around Dungeons and Dragons. So that's what's going on very shortly. Okay, so now moving through here. Gabriel, the reason why we need a subclass to get a dragon is because DMs will not give their players dragons cause dragons strong. Gabriel, and I want to make this quite clear to people. Just because you have a Drake Warden Ranger does not mean that your Dungeon Master will let you play it. If you're playing Dungeons and Dragons Adventurers League, well, yes, now they have no choice. But in a home group, the Dungeon Master is going to make that final decision anyway. Okay, and so it's not like it's a free-for-all on everything. And I encourage Dungeon Masters to restrict things, because it doesn't make sense that you we're going to have a dragon rider, but everybody else is not a dragon rider. Like, what are you going to do? Is everybody else going to be like miles and miles behind the dragon rider who's flown ahead, already done everything that needs to be done, come back and say, don't worry about that adventure and quest because it's finished? So you've always needed a reciprocating relationship with a dungeon master to get dragons into your game and to ride dragons, and you should. It would be unfair to force that onto a dungeon master. You know how I feel about it. I always feel that players should be making the dungeon master's job easier. That does not mean that you don't have a campaign that doesn't have dragon riders. I've done it. I know how difficult it is. But I don't expect everybody to do that. I don't expect anybody to even listen to what I say or even agree with anything I say. But I think the reality is we need to still ensure that the dungeon masters have a modicum of control, since they are actually doing most of the work. So for me, I would probably never use the Drake Warden Ranger. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't have dragon riders in my campaigns. If I ever run a Dragonlance campaign, I will insist that everybody rides a dragon. Probably. It's just how we do it. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot more headache. So I do understand that. But it should always be something that the Dungeon Master has some sort of say over, rather than we like, Wizards of the Coast said, but this is all legit and so forth. Wizards of the Coast is just trying to sell more stuff. They're just trying to make money. And so they will pander to whatever it is. And when I say pander, I mean Panda, as in the panda bear. Right, next, Luna. What do you got here? Just asking about Psionics because, yes, of the Scion Warrior. Yeah, the Scion Warrior makes very little sense. And the Soul Knife, when they have the Psi Crystals. And the Icewind Dale. Yeah, no, I get it. And now the Gem Dragons. Yeah. I think they really just have not put enough thought into it, frankly. It's kind of seems like they are doing what they can to appease fans of Psionics without creating the subclass. The reality is they need to create a completely different system for Psionics. If Psionics is just spell casting, it sucks. It has to be its own entity. And they won't do that because they won't sell enough books. I mean, there's people who like Psionics, but there ain't enough people who like Psionics that they would do a book that has what they need. Does that make sense? I mean, you know, I've had this discussion before. Even though my group have banned silvery barbs from the campaign, if we ever had a mage or wizard or sorcerer campaign where there's a war going on between spellcasters, we'd probably include silvery barbs, for sure. And make sure there was counterspell and shield, for sure, because it makes sense. But for everything else, it's like it's too easy button pressing for everything. Like the only time that certain things work is if you have a campaign that's built around that to make sure it does work. It's like the monstrous races. I like the idea of using different races. But that doesn't mean I want a goblin or a hobgoblin or a kobold or an orc in every single campaign. There's some times when it makes sense. I've played through a campaign, Pathfinder, where everybody played a goblin. In fact, the requirement was you had to play a goblin. You couldn't play anything else because that was what it was all about. It was playing a goblin and being naughty. And we had a good time. But that doesn't mean that's going to be for every campaign. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, anyway, so now that I've kind of told you a little bit about this, now I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's coming up. Apparently in my little diary here, Dungeon Master Roundtable, I keep selling it. I know it's not super popular. I know a lot of people don't watch it. Seriously, we have a lot of fun. It's actually probably more for us than anybody else. But we have some new people showing up in the future. And that is Crow's Perch. I don't know if you've heard of Crow's Perch. Watch out, Crow's Perch is on their way. For those of you who have requested many times, I was very lucky to find that they did actually respond. And I was really pleased to hear that Brian and William from the Dungeon Cast will be appearing in the future on the Dungeon Master Roundtable. And it will be live. That's right, it will be live. They may not be together, but they will be there at some point. And yeah, and there are some other people coming into the fray. Does anybody know Colby. Colby, that's D for D&D Deep Dive. Colby is coming on board as well. I don't know for how many. He said maybe 2 or 3. So look forward to that in the future. Jordan, PH is silent, will probably come back sometime in July, maybe. We'll see. AJ Pickett, probably next year, January, after the big influx of videos and in the down period. Dungeon Dad, I think we'll have to wait to see how his mum's in a bad way right now. So you have Luna, I'm not kidding you. Yes, that's right. The Dungeon Cast. I'm still waiting on Nate from WASD20. He said, if you're still doing it in June, I am interested. So, but that doesn't mean that it's going to happen. I would say that's and I mean the same thing happened when I was talking to Ted from Nerd Immersion. So we'll see if they come through. I have that book just addressing the dino topic. Don't you worry, dinos will eventually show up. I just don't know when. So I need to go and get myself organized because I'm supposed to be appearing very, very shortly in another live stream, but not my own. And I need to not lose my voice. So, Mike, what do you got here? You've got here a good point. I was really hoping the Artificer subclass would be a whole system of things like the rock gnomes tinkering. Yeah, but instead they are just another kind of spellcaster. Yeah. You know, here's another problem for me. I asked my patrons, should I rewrite the classes? And I got no response. I still don't know that there's enough people who are interested in me just rewriting the classes. Not all the subclasses, I just mean the classes. I don't really care about the subclasses, frankly. I only care about the classes, you know, the bard, the barbarian, the cleric, the druid, what's next after this? Help me, people. The monk, the paladin, the fighter, the sorcerer, the warlock, the wizard. And I have less interest in the artificer. But I don't know. I'm very tempted. I did say Dungeon Cast. The Dungeon Cast. Yes, they are coming in about 2 weeks. I think it is from now. About 2 weeks. You'll see some of them. Not all of them. Not all at once. I'm going to get your name wrong. Zytek. Is it Zytek? I think that's how the subclass worked in 3.5. Okay. Question from Belcom. Oh man, I'm struggling. I'm losing it. I know I should just be going. Here we go. Let's see if I can read this question and answer it. The question's gone. All right. Okay. My eyes are going too. Oh dear. I'm pushing too hard. Did someone say, yes, I did say that. I like the Artificer, but it would have been nice if it was more like the 3.5 one. The reason it's not like the 3.5 one is the Artificer in 3.5 was just busted nuts. I mean, so much stuff in 3.5 was just silly as. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, did I forget the Ranger and the Rogue? Thank you, Gabriel. Yes. Do you know there's less work that needs to be done on the Ranger? I'm not talking about the Beastmaster Ranger. That's a different story. But there's a lot less work that needs to be done on even the Rogue, frankly. I think the Rogue has a lot of features that work all the time, and that's how classes should work. Is like, you don't have to turn it on and off. You don't have to wait for a recharge, da-da-da-da. I'm not a fan of that sort of thing. It's never been something I liked. If it's too strong to use too often, then why did you put it in there in the first place? Anyway, I need to stop talking because if I don't, I am not going to be able to function. So I'm just going to say to everybody, thank you very much for watching my very long live stream and putting up with my discussion around the most bizarre monster I could possibly find. And I do appreciate your input because it does help. I don't know that I will necessarily be doing monsters every single fortnight, but they certainly will become up a lot more than they have in the past. I will not be talking about D&D Pollen in the future. So thank you to everybody who showed up for the live stream. Thank you to my patrons who support me in doing this. Otherwise, I probably would struggle. I will remind you, I am on Lighthall, running the Lost Mine of Phandelver, so go check that out. And it's the only place it's going. It's not going anywhere else, people. I'm sorry, but it's too much expense, too much work, too complicated to do it anywhere else. So it's got to go there. I got to get paid for that. That's just too hard otherwise. So yeah, thank you very much. And wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, the night, or the wee early morning, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. And hey, be nice to your neighbours. Until next time, keep rolling those 20s.